The silver foil caught the afternoon light as it fell from my husband's jacket pocket onto our bedroom floor. I stood there with his dry cleaning in my arms, staring at that small, square wrapper, and felt my entire world tilt sideways. We hadn't used condoms in 15 years, not since I had my tubes tied after our second daughter was born. My hands started shaking so badly that I dropped the rest of his clothes, but I couldn't stop staring at that tiny piece of evidence that my marriage, my life, everything I'd believed in, might be nothing but a carefully constructed lie. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and until that moment, I thought I had everything figured out. I was 42 years old, married to my college sweetheart for 17 years, mother to two beautiful daughters, Emma, 15, and Lily, 12. We lived in a comfortable 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, the kind with a 2-car garage and a backyard where we'd hosted countless barbecues for friends and family. James and I had met when we were both 21, in a psychology class at the State University. He was funny, ambitious, kind. He wanted to build a life, have a family, grow old with someone who understood him. I wanted exactly the same things. We dated for 3 years, got married in a simple ceremony by the lake, and started building our dream together. For the first decade, everything felt perfect. We were that couple everyone envied, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at inside jokes, supporting each other through job changes and family losses. James worked his way up from junior accountant to senior financial analyst at a mid-sized firm downtown. I taught English at the local high school, a job I loved because it let me be home when the girls got out of school. Money was never abundant, but it was enough. We took modest vacations, camping trips and beach rentals instead of resorts. We drove practical cars and saved for the girls' college funds. We were comfortable, stable, happy. Or at least I thought we were. Looking back now, I can see when things started to shift. It was about 3 years ago, right after James got his promotion to department head. Suddenly, he was traveling more for work, conferences in different cities, client meetings that ran late, team-building weekends that didn't include spouses. He started dressing better, buying expensive cologne, going to the gym at 5 in the morning. "I need to look the part," he'd say when I commented on his new wardrobe. "It's about professional presence." I supported him. Of course I did. That's what partners do. When he said he needed to work late, I saved him dinner and didn't complain about eating alone with the girls. When he traveled for long weekends, I managed everything at home: soccer games, school projects, household repairs, without making him feel guilty about missing family time. "You're amazing," he'd tell me, kissing my forehead. "I couldn't do any of this without you." I believed him. I believed in us. I believed in the life we'd built together. My friends noticed changes before I did. My best friend, Rachel, had coffee with me one Saturday morning about 6 months before I found the wrapper, and she'd asked carefully, "How are things with James? You seem stressed." "I'm fine, just busy with work and the girls. James has been traveling a lot, but that's just the job." Rachel had hesitated, stirring her coffee slowly. "Sarah, has he been... do you two still have time for each other? Real time?" I'd laughed it off. "We're fine, Rach. Not every marriage is fireworks and passion after 17 years. We're partners. We're building a life." But the truth was, we hadn't had real time in months, maybe longer. Our conversations revolved around logistics: who was picking up which kid, what bills needed paying, whether we needed milk from the store. We slept in the same bed, but on opposite sides, no longer reaching for each other in the night. Our anniversary had passed with a quick dinner at a chain restaurant because James had a client presentation the next morning. I told myself it was normal. This was what long-term marriage looked like. The passion fades, but the partnership remains. The love deepens even if it quiets. I'd seen my parents' marriage solid and stable even without grand romantic gestures. This was just how it worked. The girls were my focus anyway. Emma was navigating the complicated world of high school: friends, grades, college prep, the constant drama of teenage life. Lily was struggling with math and needed extra help every evening. I poured myself into being the mother they needed, the teacher my students deserved, the wife who kept the household running smoothly so James could focus on his career. I was so busy being everything to everyone that I didn't notice I'd become invisible to my own husband. But that wrapper on the bedroom floor made everything suddenly horrifyingly visible. I picked up the wrapper with trembling fingers. It was unopened, still sealed. Part of me wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe it was old from before we were married. Maybe a colleague had given it to him as a joke. Maybe it fell into his pocket somehow at a conference. But I knew. Deep in my gut, where intuition lives, I knew. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed where we'd conceived our daughters, where we'd held each other through grief when his father died, where we'd laughed and planned and dreamed together for 17 years. I sat there holding evidence of betrayal, and I felt something inside me crack. My phone buzzed. A text from James. "Running late, don't wait up for dinner, big client meeting." Big client meeting. At 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. I looked at the wrapper again. Then I did something I'd never done before. I went through his jacket pocket systematically. I found 2 more condom wrappers, both empty. A receipt from a hotel downtown, dated to weeks ago, a Thursday when he'd said he was working late at the office, and a small card, expensive cardstock, with just a phone number written in feminine handwriting and a lipstick kiss mark. The evidence was crushing, undeniable. My husband was having an affair. I sat there in our bedroom, surrounded by the ordinary details of our life. His shoes lined up in the closet, our wedding photo on the dresser, the laundry basket I'd been about to fold, and I felt like a stranger in my own home. How long had this been going on? Who was she? Did he love her? Was he planning to leave me? The question spiraled through my mind like a storm, but underneath them all was one devastating realization. The man I'd trusted completely, the man I'd built my entire adult life around, the man I'd believed would never hurt me, had been lying to my face for God knows how long. Emma called from downstairs. "Mom, I need help with my English essay." I wiped my eyes, put the evidence in my nightstand drawer, and went downstairs to help my daughter, because that's what mothers do. We keep functioning even when our worlds are falling apart. But as I sat beside Emma, helping her analyze symbolism in The Great Gatsby, I couldn't help but think about betrayal and illusion, about how Gatsby built an entire false life to pursue a dream that was never real, about how Daisy stayed with Tom even though he was unfaithful, about how I had no idea what I was going to do next. Later that night, I lay awake beside my husband, who'd come home at 10:30 smelling of cologne I hadn't bought him. He kissed my cheek, a habit, automatic, meaningless, and fell asleep within minutes. I stared at the ceiling and wondered how many other nights he'd come home to me after being with someone else. The thought made me physically ill. I got up and locked myself in the bathroom, sitting on the cold tile floor, trying to breathe through the panic and nausea. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, older, tired, defeated. When had I stopped being the vibrant young woman James had married? When had I become just the person who managed the household and raised his children while he lived a secret life? I couldn't confront him yet, not without more information, not without a plan. I'd seen enough friends go through divorces to know that the person who prepares wins. The person who acts emotionally and impulsively loses everything. So I did something that felt like a betrayal of my own principles. I started spying on my husband. The next morning, after James left for work and the girls went to school, I went through every pocket, every drawer, every corner of his belongings. I found more receipts, expensive dinners I'd never eaten, hotel rooms I'd never stayed in, flower purchases I'd never received. I found credit card statements for an account I didn't know existed, showing charges at jewelry stores and lingerie boutiques and wine bars. My hands shook as I photographed everything. Each piece of evidence felt like a knife wound, but I forced myself to document it all. I needed to understand the full scope of his deception. I checked our joint bank account. Nothing unusual there, but clearly he had separate finances I knew nothing about. How much of our marriage had been a lie? What else didn't I know? That afternoon, I called in sick to work, something I almost never did. I sat in my car outside James's office building downtown, feeling ridiculous and desperate and humiliated. But I needed to see. I waited for 3 hours. At 5:30, James emerged from the building. But he wasn't alone. He was with a woman, late 20s, beautiful in that polished way that comes from expensive salons and designer clothes. She was laughing at something he said, touching his arm in a way that was unmistakably intimate. I watched my husband kiss her. Not a friendly peck, a real kiss, the kind you give someone you're sleeping with, the kind he used to give me. Then they walked to his car together. My car, the one I'd helped him pick out 2 years ago, the one I'd wiped baby drool from when the girls were small, the one he'd promised would last until Lily got her license. He opened the door for her, like a gentleman, like he used to do for me, and they drove away together. I sat in my car and cried until I couldn't see. Then I dried my eyes, started my engine, and followed them. They went to a boutique hotel on the edge of downtown, the kind with discreet entrances and parking garages. I watched them enter together, his hand on her back, her body leaning into his. I sat in that parking garage for 20 minutes, my heart breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. Then I drove home, made dinner for my daughters, helped Lily with her math homework, listened to Emma talk about a boy she liked, and pretended everything was normal. But inside, I was planning, calculating, preparing for war. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I tracked James's movements using the location sharing we'd set up years ago for safety. I created a hidden folder on my phone filled with photographs of receipts, credit card statements, hotel bookings. I called my cousin Marcus, who was a private investigator, and asked him for advice without telling him why. If someone wanted to document infidelity, I'd ask carefully, how would they do it? Marcus had been quiet for a moment. Sarah, is everything okay? It's for a hypothetical situation. A friend. Your friend should hire a professional. But if they can't afford it, they should document everything. Dates, times, places, photographs, financial records, text messages if they can access them, bank statements. The more evidence, the better, especially if it goes to divorce court. Divorce court. The words felt surreal. I couldn't afford a private investigator. All our money was in joint accounts and James would notice large withdrawals. But I could do the work myself. So I did. I discovered that James had been spending thousands of dollars on his affair. Jewelry, expensive dinners, hotel rooms, weekend trips disguised as work conferences. I looked up the hotels and restaurants. They were in the same city where his company retreats happened, the ones I'd never been invited to. How many times had he told me he loved me while planning to meet her? How many times had he kissed me goodbye and then driven straight to her apartment? How many times had he made love to me while thinking of her? The questions tortured me, but I couldn't stop investigating. I needed to know everything. One evening, while James was in the shower, I finally did something I'd been resisting. I looked at his phone. He'd left it on the kitchen counter, something he usually never did. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was unlocked. He must have been distracted. I opened his messages and found her immediately. Her name was Amber. The texts were explicit, intimate, devastating. Plans for their next meeting, references to things they'd done together, pet names that made my stomach turn. But what broke me wasn't the sexual content. It was a text from 3 days ago. I love you. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. His response, soon, baby, I promise. Just need to handle some things first. He was planning to leave me. He was just waiting for the right time, handling things, probably figuring out how to minimize what he'd owe me in a divorce. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it and walked calmly to our bedroom. Then I closed the door, went into my closet, and screamed into a pile of clothes until my throat was raw. When James came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed, reading a book, looking perfectly normal. "You okay?" he asked, toweling his hair. "Fine. Just tired." "You've seemed tired a lot lately." I looked at him. This man I'd shared my life with, who I'd trusted completely. "Well, I'm doing everything around here while you work late constantly. It's exhausting." He had the audacity to look hurt. "Sarah, I'm doing this for us, for the family, so we can have a better life." "Right, for the family." He didn't hear the edge in my voice, or he didn't care. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't confront him yet, not until I had everything I needed to protect myself and my daughters. But I wasn't going to passively wait for him to decide my fate. I called my sister Jennifer, who lived 2 hours away. "Jen, I need to talk to you about something serious. Can I come visit this weekend?" "Of course. Is everything okay?" "Not really, but I'm going to make it okay." That Saturday, I told James I was taking the girls to visit their aunt. He seemed relieved to have the house to himself. I wondered if he was planning to bring Amber there, to our home, to our bed. At Jennifer's house, I told her everything. I showed her all the evidence I'd gathered. I cried in her arms like I hadn't cried since we were children. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to divorce him, but I need to do it right. I need to protect the girls. I need to make sure I get what I deserve after 17 years of marriage, after supporting his career, after putting my life on hold for him." "Do you have a lawyer?" "Not yet, but I'm going to find one. The best one I can afford." "What about money?" That was the problem. All our accounts were joint. If I hired a lawyer, James would see the charge. If I withdrew large amounts of cash, he'd notice. I was financially trapped in my own marriage. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, then said, "I have some money saved. Not a lot, but enough for a retainer. Take it. Pay me back after the divorce." I started to protest, but she held up her hand. "You're my sister. You do the same for me. Take the money. Hire the lawyer. Protect yourself and my nieces." So I did. On Monday morning, I called 3 divorce attorneys and made consultations. I met with all 3 during my lunch breaks from teaching, lying to my principal about doctor's appointments. The 3rd lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chen, was exactly what I needed. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. She listened to my story without judgment, looked through my evidence carefully, and then gave it to me straight. "You have excellent documentation," she said. "The affair is clear. The separate finances suggest he's been planning this, or at least hiding assets. In this state, infidelity matters for divorce settlements, especially regarding alimony. And since you supported his career for 17 years, you're entitled to a significant portion of marital assets." What do I do next? "We need to document everything about your current financial situation, every account, every asset, every debt. Then we need to understand his separate finances, bank accounts, credit cards, investments. Once we have the full picture, we file for divorce and move quickly to protect your interests." How quickly? That depends on what we find. But Sarah, you need to be prepared. Divorce is war. It's not pretty, and he's going to fight back. Can you handle that? I thought about the lies, the betrayal, the nights I'd spent alone while he built a secret life, the future he was planning without me. "Yes," I said, "I can handle it." Over the next week, I went through every financial document in our house. I made copies of tax returns, bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds, property deeds. I documented every asset we owned, from our house to our cars, to James's collection of rare coins he'd inherited from his grandfather. And I discovered something shocking. We had significantly more money than I'd realized. James had multiple accounts I'd never known about. Investments, a separate checking account with over $50,000. He'd been moving money systematically from our joint account into accounts in his name only. He'd been planning this for a long time, maybe years. While I'd been trusting him completely, he'd been preparing to leave me with as little as possible. The realization hardened something inside me. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about systematic deception, financial manipulation, and the complete betrayal of everything I'd believed our marriage meant. But now I knew, and knowledge was power. Patricia filed paperwork with the court to freeze all our assets. She got a forensic accountant to analyze James's hidden finances, and she prepared divorce papers that would ensure I got what I was legally entitled to, half of everything he'd tried to hide. But I didn't serve him yet. There was one more thing I needed to do first. I needed him to know that I knew. I needed to confront him, not with emotion, but with evidence. I needed to watch his face when his carefully constructed lies came crashing down, and I had the perfect opportunity coming up. Our anniversary was in 2 weeks, 17 years of marriage. James had already made reservations at an expensive restaurant downtown, probably feeling guilty or trying to maintain appearances. I was going to make it a night he'd never forget. The 2 weeks before our anniversary passed in a strange fog. I moved through my daily routines, teaching, parenting, cooking dinner, doing laundry, while internally counting down to the moment everything would change. James seemed oblivious to my coldness, or perhaps he was too distracted by his secret life to notice. He texted me sweet messages occasionally, "Love you, babe," and "Can't wait for our anniversary dinner." Each message felt like a mockery. I responded with brief acknowledgments because I didn't want to tip him off that anything had changed. The girls noticed I was distracted. "Mom, are you okay?" Emma asked one evening while we were folding laundry together. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired from work." "You and Dad seem weird lately, like you barely talk to each other." My heart broke a little. Of course she'd noticed. 15-year-olds miss nothing. "Your father and I are fine. We're just busy, that's all." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. I hated lying to my daughters, but I couldn't tell them the truth yet. Not until everything was finalized, not until I knew exactly what our future looked like. I needed to protect them from the chaos as long as possible. During this time, I made one final discovery that changed everything. I was looking through James's home office, documenting his business assets, when I found a folder buried in the back of his filing cabinet. Inside were papers for a vacation property I'd never heard of. A lakeside cabin in another state, purchased 8 months ago, in James's name only. The purchase price was $200,000, paid in cash. I stared at those documents, my mind racing. Where had he gotten $200,000 in cash? We didn't have that kind of money, or so I'd thought. I'd been so careful with our finances, stretching every dollar, skipping luxuries for myself so we could save for the girls' college funds and our retirement. But clearly, there was money I'd known nothing about. I took photos of everything and sent them to Patricia. She called me within an hour. "Sarah, this is bigger than I thought. That cabin is a major asset. And if he purchased it with cash during your marriage, it's marital property regardless of whose name is on the deed. But more importantly, we need to find out where that money came from. Is it possible he's been embezzling from his company?" The thought made me sick. I don't know. I don't think so. James is a lot of things, but I didn't think he was a criminal. People hide all sorts of things. I'm going to have the forensic accountant dig deeper. But Sarah, you need to be careful. If James realizes you're investigating his finances, he might do something drastic. Don't let on that you know anything. That night, I lay awake beside my husband and wondered who he really was. Had I ever known him at all? Or had I been married to a stranger for 17 years, seeing only what I wanted to see? The anniversary arrived on a rainy Thursday evening. James came home from work with flowers, roses, my favorite, though I wondered if he remembered that or if it was just a safe bet. He kissed my cheek and said, "Happy anniversary, beautiful. Ready for a great night?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, and the irony was lost on him. We dropped the girls at Jennifer's house for a sleepover. Emma hugged me tightly before going inside. "Have fun tonight, Mom. You deserve it." If only she knew. The restaurant was elegant, expensive, the kind of place James and I would normally never go to. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a pianist playing soft jazz in the corner. The hostess led us to a private corner table, and James held my chair out for me like a gentleman. "This is nice," I said, looking around. "Very nice." "Only the best for you," James said, smiling that charming smile that had won me over in college. 17 years. Can you believe it? "No," I said honestly. "I really can't." We ordered wine, appetizers, entrees. James made small talk about work, about the girls, about a vacation he wanted to take next summer. I let him talk, watching him, memorizing his face for when everything changed. Halfway through dinner, during a lull in conversation, I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I set it on the table between us. "What's this?" James asked, looking confused. "Open it." He did, still smiling slightly, probably expecting anniversary cards or maybe romantic photos. But as he looked through the contents, copies of his credit card statements, hotel receipts, printed text messages, photos of him and Amber, his face went pale. "Sarah, what? How did I find out about your affair?" I kept my voice low, calm, even though my heart was racing. "It wasn't that hard, James. You got sloppy. Or maybe you wanted me to find out. I don't know anymore. Sarah, listen, this isn't what it looks like. Please don't insult me with that cliche. I know exactly what it looks like. You've been having an affair with a woman named Amber for at least 18 months. You've been spending thousands of our dollars on her. You've told her you love her. You've been planning to leave me." James's hands were shaking. Other diners were starting to glance our way. "Can we talk about this at home? Please? Not here." "No, we're talking about it here, right now, because I want you to understand something, James. I'm done. I'm not going to cry or beg or ask you to end it and come back to me. I don't want you back. What I want is a divorce." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You don't mean that." "I absolutely mean it. I've already hired a lawyer. I've documented everything, every lie, every dollar you've spent on her, every hotel room, every secret account. And I've discovered some interesting things, James, like that vacation cabin you bought, the one I'd never heard of, the $200,000 in cash you somehow had." His face went from pale to ashen. "You went through my files?" "Yes, just like you went through our marriage vows and decided they meant nothing. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to divorce you, and I'm going to make sure I get exactly what I deserve. Half of everything, including all those assets you tried to hide." "Sarah, please, can we just talk about this? I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but we can fix this. For the girls, don't you dare use our daughters as an excuse. You should have thought about them before you decided to destroy our family." I stood up, leaving the envelope on the table. "The divorce papers will be served to you at work tomorrow. I'd suggest you find yourself a good lawyer. Oh, and one more thing. I'm keeping the house. You can go live in your secret cabin with Amber or wherever else you want, but you're not taking the girls home away from them." I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, even though inside I was shaking. I'd done it. I'd confronted him. And I'd maintained my dignity and control. Behind me, I heard James calling my name, but I didn't look back. The next several weeks were a blur of legal meetings, financial disclosures, and tense negotiations. James hired an expensive lawyer and tried to fight me on everything: the house, the retirement accounts, alimony, even custody of the girls. But I had something he didn't: the truth, documented meticulously. Every receipt, every text message, every lie he'd told. Patricia used it all to build an ironclad case. The forensic accountant discovered that the $200,000 for the cabin had come from bonuses James had hidden from me over the past 5 years. Money that should have been marital property, that should have gone into our joint account, that I'd had every legal right to know about. "He's been systematically defrauding you for years," Patricia explained during one of our meetings. moving money, hiding assets, preparing for this divorce before he even asked for it. The judge is not going to look kindly on that. James's lawyer tried to negotiate. They offered me the house and a small settlement if I'd agree to reduced alimony. Patricia advised me to refuse. "You gave up career advancement to support him and raise your children," she said. "You're entitled to significant alimony. Don't let him make you feel guilty for asking for what's legally yours." So I didn't. I stood firm on every demand. The hardest part was telling the girls. I waited until everything was officially filed, until James had moved out to a temporary apartment, until there was no going back. Then I sat them both down in our living room, the room where we'd opened Christmas presents and celebrated birthdays and lived as a family, and I told them the truth. Emma cried. Lily was confused and angry. They asked questions I did my best to answer honestly without vilifying their father. "Did Dad stop loving us?" Lily asked, her voice small. "No, sweetheart. Your dad loves you both very much. Sometimes adults make bad choices that hurt the people around them, but this isn't about you. This is about problems between your dad and me." "Did he cheat on you?" Emma asked bluntly. At 15, she was old enough to understand. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. But that's between him and me. He's still your father, and he still loves you." Emma's face hardened. "I don't want to talk to him." "You don't have to right now, but eventually we'll figure out a custody arrangement. He's still going to be part of your life." Over the next few weeks, I watched my daughters process their grief and anger. Emma refused to take James's calls for 2 weeks. Lily cried herself to sleep most nights. I held them, comforted them, and hated James for putting them through this. But I also started to see glimmers of something unexpected: strength. Emma started speaking up more, setting boundaries, demanding honesty from the people in her life. Lily became more independent, less willing to just accept what adults told her. They were learning hard lessons about trust and betrayal, but they were also learning resilience. As for me, I threw myself into rebuilding. I met with a financial planner to understand my post-divorce finances. I started therapy to process the trauma of betrayal. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the years I'd focused solely on being a wife and mother. And I did something purely for myself. I signed up for a creative writing class at the community college, something I'd wanted to do for years but had never made time for. Every Tuesday evening, I sat in a classroom and wrote stories about complex women making difficult choices. It was cathartic. Rachel, my best friend, took me out for coffee one Saturday morning, about 2 months after I'd confronted James. "How are you really doing?" she asked. "Honestly? Some days I'm okay. Some days I'm angry. Some days I cry in the shower where the girls can't hear. But I'm surviving, and I think eventually I'll do more than survive." "He doesn't deserve you," Rachel said fiercely. "He never did." "Maybe. But I deserved better than what I accepted. I let myself become small, invisible. I prioritized everyone else's needs over my own until I forgot I even had needs. I'm not going to do that anymore." Good. Because the Sarah I knew in college was fierce. She had dreams and ambitions and wouldn't take crap from anyone. I missed her. I missed her too. The divorce proceedings continued. James's lawyer tried every tactic, claiming I was alienating the children, suggesting I was exaggerating his affair, arguing that his hidden accounts were separate property. But every time they tried something, Patricia shut it down with evidence. "He's desperate," Patricia told me. "He knows he's going to lose, and lose big. His lawyer is just trying to minimize the damage." "How much longer?" "We're close. I think they'll settle soon. They don't want to go to trial where all of this becomes public record. Your husband has a reputation to protect, and his company won't be happy if they find out about his financial irregularities." She was right. A week later, James's lawyer called with a settlement offer. It was generous, more than I'd hoped for. The house, half the retirement accounts, alimony for 10 years, child support, and a lump sum payment of $100,000 for my pain and suffering. "Take it," Patricia advised. "This is an excellent settlement. You could fight for more, but it would mean months more of litigation and legal fees. This gives you financial security and lets you move on with your life." I thought about it for 24 hours. Then I accepted. The divorce was finalized on a cold December morning, exactly 6 months after I'd found that condom wrapper in James's pocket. I stood in the courthouse with Patricia beside me, signed the papers, and walked out a single woman for the first time in 17 years. I felt lighter, freer, terrified, hopeful, all at once. The settlement money allowed me to do something I'd been planning in secret. With Patricia's help, I'd been working on a project that would ensure James remembered the consequences of his betrayal for years to come. See, during the divorce proceedings, I'd learned something interesting. The cabin James had bought, the one he'd planned to share with Amber, was in a development where all the property owners had to agree to major decisions. And the development was considering selling to a resort developer who wanted to turn the area into a luxury vacation destination. If the sale went through, property values would triple. If it didn't, they'd stagnate, or possibly decrease because the development lacked infrastructure and amenities. James had been counting on that sale. He'd bought the cabin as an investment, planning to flip it for a huge profit once the resort deal went through. But I owned half of that cabin now, thanks to the divorce settlement, and I had voting rights in the Property Owners Association. So when the vote came up on whether to approve the resort development, I voted no, and I convinced enough other owners, showing them plans for an alternative development that would preserve the natural beauty of the area while still improving infrastructure, that the vote failed. James called me, furious for the first time since the divorce was finalized. "You did this on purpose," he shouted. "You sabotaged the resort deal." "I voted according to my conscience," I said calmly. "I didn't think a massive resort was right for that area. Too much environmental impact. You cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Actually, I cost us hundreds of thousands. It's my investment too, remember? You made it marital property when you bought it during our marriage with hidden money, so I have every right to vote on its future. This is revenge. Pure revenge. No, James, revenge would be telling your company about your financial irregularities. Revenge would be sending screenshots of your texts with Amber to her family. Revenge would be posting everything publicly so everyone knew what you did. This is just me exercising my legal rights as a property owner. You're being vindictive. I'm being practical. The alternative development I supported will happen in 2 years. The property values will increase steadily over time. It's a better long-term investment. But you wouldn't know that because you were only thinking about quick profits, just like you only thought about quick pleasure when you decided to cheat. I hung up before he could respond. A few days later, I ran into Amber at the grocery store. I'd never spoken to her before, had only seen her from a distance that day outside James's office. She was in the produce section looking at avocados, and when she saw me, she froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then I walked over. "You must be Amber," I said calmly. Yes. Look, I'm sorry, I didn't know. He said you were separated, that the marriage was over." "He lied," I said simply. "We weren't separated. He was sleeping in my bed and having breakfast with our daughters every morning while planning his future with you, but I'm not here to argue about that. I just want you to know something." She looked terrified, like I might make a scene, but I kept my voice calm, conversational. James is very good at making people believe what he wants them to believe. He made me believe we had a solid marriage for 17 years while he was hiding money and planning an exit strategy. He made you believe he was a single man or almost single, ready for a new relationship. But the truth is, James thinks about James first, always. So whatever he's promised you, whatever future he's painted, just remember that when things get hard, when you're no longer convenient, he'll start looking for the next person. "That's not true," she said, but her voice wavered. "He loves me." Maybe he does. Or maybe he loves the idea of you, young, exciting, new. But I was young and exciting and knew once too. And here I am, 17 years later, divorced because he got bored and selfish. I picked up an avocado, tested its ripeness. I'm not trying to win him back. You can have him. I just thought you deserved to know what kind of man you're building your life around. I put the avocado in my cart and walked away. I don't know if my words affected her or not. Honestly, it didn't matter. I'd said what I needed to say. The real climax came a few weeks later at Emma's 16th birthday party. I'd invited family and Emma's friends to our house, the house that was finally, legally, mine alone. My sister Jennifer helped me decorate. Rachel brought cupcakes from Emma's favorite bakery. The house was full of laughter and music and celebration. James arrived to drop off his present. We'd agreed he could come for the cake and present opening for Emma's sake. She was slowly rebuilding her relationship with him, though it was still strained. When he walked in, I saw him look around the house with something like grief on his face. This had been his home, too, once. Now he was a guest, relegated to the margins of his own daughter's life. Emma opened his present, a laptop for college applications, expensive and practical. She thanked him politely, but without much warmth. Then she opened my present, a framed piece I had made. It was a collection of mother-daughter photos spanning her entire life, arranged artistically with a quote in the center. She is brave and strong and broken all at once, and there's a beauty in that paradox. Emma started crying when she read it. Mom, it's perfect. You've been so strong through all of this, I said, hugging her. I'm so proud of the young woman you're becoming. I learned from the best, she whispered back. I looked up and saw James watching us, and I saw the moment he realized what he'd lost. Not just me, not just the marriage, but this. These everyday moments of connection and love, the real intimacy that comes from showing up consistently, from being present, from choosing your family every single day. He'd traded it all for excitement and novelty and ego gratification. And now he was standing in his former home, watching his daughter share a moment with her mother, and he was completely outside of it. That's when I knew I'd won. Not because I'd taken his money or his property or even my revenge through the cabin vote, but because I'd rebuilt a life that was full and meaningful and real, while he was left with the hollow victory of a relationship built on lies. After everyone left and the girls went to bed, I sat in my living room, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in my bedroom getting ready for a date. An actual date. The first one in almost 2 decades. He was a history teacher at a nearby school, someone Rachel had introduced me to at a dinner party. We'd been talking for weeks, taking it slow, and tonight was our first official dinner out. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She was thinner. I'd lost weight from stress, but then gained some back from taking care of myself. She had new clothes that fit properly and made her feel confident. She had a haircut that was stylish rather than just practical. But more than the external changes, there was something different in her eyes. A clarity, a strength. The doorbell rang. Emma ran to answer it because she'd insisted on meeting him before I went out. "Mom's almost ready," I heard her say. "So, Mr. Harrison, what are your intentions with my mother?" I hurried downstairs to find Emma interrogating poor David with the intensity of a police detective. He was taking it well, answering her questions seriously and respectfully. "Emma, stop terrorizing him," I said, but I was smiling. "Just making sure he's good enough for you," Emma said. Then to David, "She's been through a lot. If you hurt her, you'll have to deal with me." "Noted," David said with a grin, "but I promise I plan to be a perfect gentleman." As we left, Emma hugged me. "Have fun, Mom. You deserve it." Those words kept echoing in my head during dinner. You deserve it. For so long, I hadn't believed that. I'd accepted scraps of attention and affection. I'd made myself small, accommodate someone else's ego. I'd convinced myself that sacrifice was the same as love. but I deserved better. I always had. David and I talked for hours about teaching, about books, about our children, about life. He'd been divorced 5 years ago, amicably, and had 2 college-aged kids. He was kind and funny and genuinely interested in what I had to say. He didn't check his phone constantly or talk over me or make me feel like I was boring. "Can I ask you something?" he said over dessert. "What made you say yes to this date? Rachel said you'd turned down several setups before me." Honestly, I wasn't ready before. I needed time to figure out who I was outside of being someone's wife, to remember that I'm a whole person on my own, not just half of a couple. And now? Now I know who I am, and I'm ready to share that with someone, but not lose myself in the process. He smiled. That's incredibly healthy and attractive, if I'm being honest. The date was good. Not earth-shattering, not love at first sight, but genuinely pleasant. And that was enough. I wasn't looking for passion that burned so hot it consumed everything. I'd had that once, or thought I had, and it had turned to ash. I was looking for something steadier, something real. Over the following months, my life settled into a new normal. The girls adjusted to splitting time between 2 houses, though they spent most nights with me. James remained involved in their lives, but from a distance, always slightly outside looking in. His relationship with Amber ended. Predictably, 6 months after our divorce was finalized. I heard through mutual friends that she'd discovered he was already looking for someone new. Some people never learn. I continued teaching, but I also started working on something new, a memoir about my experience. Not vengeful or bitter, but honest. A story about losing yourself in a relationship and finding yourself again after it ends. My writing teacher from the community college helped me shape it, and eventually I found a small publisher interested in it. The book wouldn't make me rich or famous, but it would exist. My story would exist, told in my own words, and maybe it would help someone else who was going through something similar. Jennifer threw me a book launch party when it was published. Small, intimate, just family and close friends in her backyard. Emma and Lily were there, proud of their mom for creating something meaningful from pain. "I read it," Emma said, holding a copy. "The whole thing, it made me cry, but it also made me understand better. What you went through, what you survived. I hope it also showed you what not to accept in your own relationship someday," I said. "You're worth more than crumbs of affection. Remember that." "I will, I promise." Lily, now 13, hugged me tight. "You're the strongest person I know, Mom." "I'm not that strong, sweetheart. I just didn't have a choice. When life breaks you, you either stay broken or you rebuild. I chose to rebuild." As I looked around at the people gathered, my sister who'd supported me financially, Rachel who'd supported me emotionally, my daughters who'd survived this with me, new friends I'd made in the process of reclaiming my life, I realized something important. James had tried to take everything from me. My marriage, my financial security, my sense of self-worth. He'd betrayed me in the deepest way possible, and for a while, it had nearly destroyed me. But in losing him, I'd found something more valuable. Myself. The woman I'd been before I'd molded myself to fit someone else's expectations. The woman I was always meant to be. Was I bitter about what happened? Sometimes. Did I still have moments of anger when I thought about the lies and deception? Absolutely. But I also had moments of profound gratitude, not for the betrayal itself, but for what it had forced me to do. To stand up, to fight back, to demand what I deserved, to rebuild a life that was authentically mine. The condom wrapper that had fallen from James's pocket hadn't just revealed his affair. It had revealed a truth I'd been avoiding for years. I'd been settling for far less than I deserved. I'd been so busy being what everyone else needed that I'd forgotten to ask what I needed. Now I ask that question every day. What do I need? What do I want? What makes me happy? And I actually listen to the answers. That's the real victory. Not the divorce settlement or the satisfaction of watching James face consequences, but the quiet, profound victory of knowing myself and refusing to settle for anything less than I'm worth. A year after the divorce, I sat in my garden on a warm spring evening, reading a book with a glass of wine beside me. Emma was upstairs on a video call with friends. Lily was practicing piano in the living room. The house was full of life and sound and the comfortable chaos of a family that was healing. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "Thinking of you. Hope you're having a good evening." I smiled and texted back, "I am. Really good." And I meant it. Life after betrayal isn't perfect. There are still hard days, moments of grief for what I thought I had, flashes of anger at the years I wasted on someone who didn't value me. But there are also good days. Increasingly good days. Days where I wake up and feel grateful for my life, exactly as it is. I learned that you can't control what people do to you. You can't prevent betrayal or guarantee loyalty, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to survive and then to thrive. You can choose to rebuild stronger and wiser and more authentically than before. That's what I did. And that's what I'd encourage anyone facing similar betrayal to do. Don't stay small. Don't accept crumbs. Don't lose yourself trying to save a relationship with someone who's already left. Stand up. Document everything. Protect yourself. And then, when the dust settles, rebuild a life that's so full and rich and meaningful that you look back and realize the betrayal, as painful as it was, set you free to become who you were always meant to be. That foil wrapper changed everything, but in the end, it changed it for the better. I'm 44 now. I have a career I love, daughters who are thriving, a home that's truly mine, and a future full of possibilities I never would have considered when I was trapped in a dying marriage. I have myself back, and that's worth more than anything James could have taken from me. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're going through something similar, if you've discovered betrayal or are feeling invisible in your own relationship, I want you to know that you're not alone. You're stronger than you think. And you deserve so much more than settling for someone who can't see your worth. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more real-life stories about resilience, heartbreak, and finding yourself again. And leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal? What helped you through it? Remember, you are enough. You've always been enough. And anyone who can't, see, that doesn't deserve a place in your life. Take care of yourselves. You matter.